is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is brand new music from Toxic Holocaust. The name of that tune is Black Out the Code. It is from the release Primal Future 2019. And on the line right now is a guy that's about to black out the code. For us, it is the one, the only, it is Mr. Joel Grind. Joel, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Sure, man. Well, Joel, I'm going to start off by doing the ass kiss that I guess everybody does when they get music from you, man. This record kicks ass, man. It is so good.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
It's the one thing with this music, not only from yourself, Joel, but from a lot of bands that are doing the thrash type of music, is that so few of them seem to get the production right. And that's one thing I really, not only with this record, but pretty much throughout your career, you have done, is you've really been able to capture that, the live feel, without it all of a sudden feeling sterile from a studio, man. And that's a tribute to you, man.
Well, that's awesome to hear, man. I appreciate it. I put a lot of work into, getting it to sound a certain way. That doesn't necessarily mean hi-fi, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it sounds a little bit murky. Like this new one kind of has like this reverby kind of like almost like in a well kind of quality, but totally intentional. I think it fits the sound of the the writing and stuff for the music. So that's something I put a lot of effort into, is kind of trying to set the tone of the album through like the timbres and instruments and stuff like that. So.
Is it difficult to do that in today's world where everything is so digitized, to where it almost, if you use any tool, any modern tool, it almost cleanses that raw, vibrant feel to the music?
It's true. I think that's a big factor in why 90% of metal records nowadays sound like cookie cutter, like sound the same, same presets on the drums and same, samples and stuff like that. I wanted to be as far removed from that as possible, because that's just something that for me, one of my favorite things about, production from like, 70s, 80s, like even like some of the early 90s stuff, is that everything sounded different, and it gives those records a certain character. Even when it's a bad recording, there's something you can remember about it because it's unique, and that's something that, that I think is missing today. A lot of records sound exactly the same, and that's something I did not want to do. No question.
Well, Joel, for people that don't know, Toxic Holocaust is anything but a new band. You guys have been, at least the entity Toxic Holocaust is, 20 or almost 20, right?
20 years old, man. Yep.
Dude, did you ever think that you'd be still doing this 20 years later?
I had no idea, man. When I started, that like my goal, like I always take baby steps with the goals with what I do, it's funny how, that much time can pass and you don't really notice it, because it's like so incremental. Sometimes like you just move on to the next thing and then you look back and like, wow, it's been 20 years. I actually was doing an interview and, someone mentioned that it was 20 years that I started the band, and then I didn't even like realize it at the time. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. But yeah, it's funny how that can happen. But yeah, did not expect that when I started the band.
No question. And talking about time, just disappearing in chunks. Boy, it's been a long time since we had a release from you. What's been 6-7 years since
it
Chemistry.
was 6 years.
That's a long time for any band, man. Where'd you go, I guess?
It's funny. I was still continuing doing music. I was writing Toxic music, but I was also a couple things, kind of a complicated explanation. But basically, I started a recording studio that I record other bands with. I mix bands and master bands, stuff like that. And that's something that when I started it was a huge undertaking to I think anybody will tell you that starts their own business, it's something that you got to put a lot of work into to build your, client base and stuff like that. So that was, that took some time. And, I got to the point where I got really busy doing that which was a good thing. That's an awesome problem to have. But what happened was basically like it was kind of hard starting your own business. It's kind of hard to say no to people that want to work with you,
Oh, yeah.
So time just kind of got away from me there. And also, I was doing soundtrack work for like synth stuff, and I did a couple synth albums on Death Waltz and stuff like that. So I was still very active, like musically, but just the Toxic stuff, and also I was in between a record label too. I was on Relapse, and now I signed to E1. But at the time, my contract was up through Relapse, so kind of a perfect storm in a way. Looking for a label, things like that. So yeah, a lot of stuff happened in between there, but yeah, definitely a long time for a band to not have a record.
Okay. Now, what does a label mean in 2020 versus what it meant before? I mean, do they just front the recording costs, or do they put you on the road, or what does a label provide that you couldn't do for yourself at this point?
Mainly, I think this goes for any band really. I think any band can do it without a label nowadays. I don't think that's an issue. My main thing was I really want to focus on working on the music myself.
Okay.
I don't really want to be packing orders for records and figuring out advertising, things like that. Just now, because Toxic is a little bit of a bigger band, it would just take so much chunk of a time to do it that it made more sense to do a label to get all the distribution, especially in Europe and stuff like that. Like that stuff is a little bit more complicated, that's not just necessarily like selling your records locally or whatever, or doing stuff online. It's like selling physical copies and moving units and stuff like that. That's a little bit more undertaking, so that I think that's where a label kind of helps out there. The money helps, but honestly, I recorded it myself, so that wasn't really the issue about it. It was more about getting the stuff out there, and that's something that in the past I kind of had trouble getting the records in bands, or fans' hands in Europe. So that was something that I was very cautious of, that wherever I went with, whatever label I went with, that I could get the stuff out to the fans, because that's the most important thing to me. I don't want our fans paying a bunch of money on eBay and, on Discogs and stuff for our records. It's just not something that, I think is cool. Like if people want the records, I think they should be able to get them.
Sure. Now, no secret for anybody that's heard the new record, it sounds like you're a user of technology that kind of hates technology. Is that fair? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's something that, it can both help and hurt. It depends on the way you use it, I guess. You see a lot of people addicted to their technology, and, I'm no different. I think everybody is, and it's just, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's weird because, like you see kids nowadays, like growing up with like, they don't go outside anymore. They have like an iPad and stuff, and they play video games and shit like that. And that just can't be good for society in general, and, it's only going to get worse. So
right.
It kind of ties a little bit into the record,
Sure. If you had your way, what would you get rid of? Would you get rid of the internet? Would you put 3 phones in your house spread out all across that ring at once? Or, what do you think is the worst piece of technology that's out there that you think we could actually go backwards with?
I kind of just think that, it less about the technology. I think the technology is great, and I think it's very useful. I think it's the people behind some of it that the reasons for certain things are kind of nefarious, the spying and the intentionally, like, the marketing to, and like the research on how to make it more addictive and stuff like that. That's no different than like the cigarette companies or something, like trying to make their product more addictive.
Sure.
It's not, that's not healthy. I don't think, to have people addicted to the stuff, and intentionally so. I think using it as a tool, it's great. Like it's awesome. You can get email on your phone and check the internet and stuff like that.
Sure.
But things like Facebook and Instagram and stuff, like actually intentionally like looking to make it more addictive and figuring out how to make it more hit those dopamine receptors and stuff like that. And that's kind of, I think that's the part I would probably get rid of, is like the nefarious aspect of it.
Sure.
And the spying, of course, on you too,
right.
And all that. Listening at all times on your phone, right? To target ads to you. I mean, that's not, that's not a world I really want to be living in.
Yeah, it is really creepy when you go and you buy something online and then you go to Facebook or whatever and there's 15 ads for that same product.
Or you do a search on for something on Google or whatever, and there's like all the ads are about that, or you say something to your friend about something and then you see it. I mean, that's just, if that's not like the Big Brother thing that it was talked about, then I don't know what is. That literally is listening to you at all times.
Yeah, it definitely is. And you know what another thing is, man, and maybe you'll agree, maybe you're not. And before I bring this up, I'm going to say this is not an attack on anybody that you've worked with, other than this is more bigger picture type thing. I think personally, aside from the obvious pitfalls that technology has had to the music business, I think the one thing that it has really done is let less than reputable people disguise their ability to steal from artists. Because, you guys go and say anything. You say, well, how many streams did I get? And the answer is always, well, it's tough to say because there's so many avenues of streams and YouTube and or when you guys try to get paid, that's a whole nother thing. It's, well, this kind of company, it isn't paying their appropriate licensing or this or that. And it makes it so much easier for those kinds of criminality to actually devalue what it is that you do.
Yeah, it sort of muddies the waters a little bit. Like you don't really know where the money is coming from. And, the people that understand it, they can use it at their own, for their own way. You know what I mean? And the majority of people, myself included, it's like it's so confusing. Like that I don't really understand a lot of the way the the money's paid out and stuff like that for the online streams and all that stuff. It's confusing.
Yeah.
Like if you read those like contracts and stuff, it's for like like Spotify and things like that. It's like really confusing. It's like it turns into like fractions of cents and stuff. It's crazy.
It really is. Now, for a band like Toxic to like you said, you just signed a new deal for this record with E1. Do you have the option to not be streaming or to say, well, I don't want the whole record streaming. I only want like 4 songs online, like an EP. Do you have that option, or is that strictly if you're going to sign with us, you're going to go by our deal?
I think it's a possibility you probably could. I mean, that's something you would have to probably fight for, like during the contractual agreement phase, like before you sign. But that's probably something you could do, but I don't really know why you would, because honestly, nowadays, like you're kind of just shooting yourself in the foot if you do a record and don't do all those things. Honestly, like even if the money wasn't or isn't, I guess I should say, isn't as good as like a physical sale or whatever, it's still makes it available for people to listen to, and that is a good thing in my opinion. Because it's going to be on YouTube regardless. Someone's going to put it up on YouTube. Like, you know what I mean? You can't really stop that. So, it's better that you have control of, the way it's presented, and, at least you can get a little bit of money for it. And, it ends up on those like weird playlists that people discover your music and stuff. So in my opinion, I think it's still a good thing, even though I think, you should get more money for what, than what they actually pay.
I definitely agree with you, man. Now, Joel, nothing new to the Toxic Holocaust formula than having a brand new band to play on the record versus the last record. What is it about that with you? Because you've changed several times, and I mean there are obviously bands. Megadeth always comes to mind. I'm sure you've heard that reference a million times. That it's Dave Mustaine and then all the other guys that he puts around. And it seems like Toxic is definitely that way for you. What is it about that for you? Does that help you with creative energy, or do you just not like to share the creative piece with other people, or what?
Well, it's a weird thing because Toxic is unique in the fact that, unlike Megadeth, it started as a real, like a full band, you know what I mean? Like it's like a quote unquote real band, like Toxic started as a solo project. I did the first 2 albums by myself. I played all the instruments, and, I came up with the name, came up with everything, so it's something that came at a necessity. By where I grew up, I wasn't able to really find musicians to play with, so I kind of had to learn how to play stuff, and then I started it myself, but I think that's what makes it a little bit unique. So I think having that unique origin kind of explains why, there's always like an evolving lineup and stuff like that, and unlike, Megadeth, they have like, a lot of the times they have falling outs with their ex-members and stuff like that. And, I have an open door policy. Like there's honestly, like, I don't think there's one member that I've played with, that I have, ill things to say about, or, like a beef with or anything, like they, that to me, like they're always welcome to come back. And, I think it'd be cool to, do a record with them again. It's not like, a situation where it's like, this member leaves because of this situation. It's mostly just like, it's a discussion. Like, I think this next one I'm going to do solo, like the early days, because going back to being 20 years now, I did a record, during that 6-year period where it was called Yellow Goat, and I did it solo. It was a side project off of Toxic, and I did that solo, and all the fans were saying, you should do another Toxic record like this, like you did in the early days, stuff like that. And it was in the back of my mind and stuff like that. And then, being 20 years, I was like, that'd be a cool time period to kind of bring it back to the roots in a way, and sure, do something again myself. So that's kind of the long-winded version of why there's always a sure, evolving lineup.
No question. Now, Joel, from listening to not only the new record, which is Primal Future 2019, but to listening basically to all of your stuff, it's very clear to me anyway that you are not just slopping together lyrics. Your lyrics are definitely important to you. You're definitely message driven, and I'm always curious with especially with thrash bands, if you go into releasing it with an expectation that the audience tears it down and listens to the message and gets the message, or if you are okay with the fact that a lot of people are just going to hear it, it's fast, it's furious, and they have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
Honestly, both ways appeal to me. I try to make it, a little bit more, have a little bit more depth to it with the lyrics, but it's something that, like, you can also go to like a show and just have a good time and not really have to pay attention. Not everybody's like super, in tune or cares about the lyrics, that's just something that some people just don't care about it. And that's valid too. That's fine. If you're just a guitar player, and you just like the riffs or whatever, you're more in that school of, just like the music and riffs and stuff, that's cool. Or, if you look further into the lyrics and stuff, that's cool too. I try to give it, a kind of a total package kind of thing.
No question. Well, Joel, Toxic Holocaust is going out on the road, big tour, going out with Soulfly. Talk a little bit about that. That's definitely gonna put the band in front of a lot of eyes that are appropriate eyes and ears to actually hear you.
I'm looking forward to it, man. Max especially is somebody that, growing up, I was a huge Sepultura fan, still am. So I'm looking forward to hitting the road with them. It's an honor, and it should be a great tour, man. We're hitting a lot of spots we haven't hit in years. So playing a lot of places, little pockets in Canada that we haven't played in a really long time. So looking forward to seeing everybody up there, and it should be a good one.
Is there that competitive thing with you that you got to go out and absolutely push Soulfly to their limit by kicking the room's ass, or is that just like standard?
I mean, I just try, with the Toxic stuff, I just try to do the best we can, and that's something that it's not a competitive thing between us and Soulfly. I just want to give the fans their money's worth, I want to make sure everybody's having a good time when we play, and that's something that, I'm sure Soulfly has the same mentality. I'm sure they're going to kick everyone's ass, so it'll be good.
No question, man. Well, for now, people should definitely take a listen to the new release from Toxic Holocaust. It is called Primal Future 2019. Joel, as a tradition on the show, we always let the artist pick a closing track from the new release. Maybe tell us a story about it. So what would you like us to play to wrap this one up?
Let's maybe New World Beyond. That might be a good one. We're doing a video for that one soon, so I might get some traction on that. That one is kind of more like a Mad Maxy kind of, that would take place after the world has like a catastrophic event has happened, and you're kind of out searching for like your survival needs, like water and food and things like that. So that's kind of what that tune is about. That sets the sets the stage for that one.
Very
and
cool.
look for the new video soon. That'll be out probably I don't know, a week or two. So
all right, well, definitely we'll be looking for that, but for now we'll just give them the musical side of it. So check it out. It is New World Beyond. It is Toxic Holocaust right here on your Classic Metal Show.